Felix Okpara becomes the second transfer portal gift for Rick Barnes and the Tennessee basketball program. Why Rick Barnes' team got a whole lot tougher here on a Thursday, or here on a Friday. That and a whole lot more. It is your Friday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. It is your team every single day because we're a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Eric Kane. Big shout-outs to our friends over at Monopoly Go. You can play with your friends, compete against your friends by downloading Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store and in Google Play. We got a whole lot to get into today. Tennessee's second gift from the transfer portal for the Rick Barnes basketball team. That is Felix Okpara from Ohio State, a center. We'll give you the breakdown on that and who's to come maybe before the weekend is over. ESPN put out a couple of different articles about transfer portal football and two Vols that they're really, really high on in a couple of different lists, and projected landing points for Elijah Herring, Tyler Barron. That's coming up in segment number 2. And then I wanted to have an exercise because the NFL draft is ongoing right now. The next future star in the NFL from Tennessee. Well, let's talk about it. There's a lot of choices that we can kind of pick through here. That and a whole lot more here on your Friday edition of Locked On Vols. You can watch us, listen to us, follow us, subscribe to us, and most importantly, download us wherever you get your podcasts, and of course, Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button. Let's continue to grow this show and get in front of more and more Tennessee fans. So, Felix Okpara joins Darlington Stone Dubar as the two commits to the transfer portal for Tennessee. So, you had 5 open slots. You had 6 open slots. You got Dubar. You had 5 open slots. You got Okpara. Now you have 4 open slots. You had to get a wing, okay, to replace, obviously, not necessarily the production, but the body at least, and the fit of a, Dalton Connect. And that's what Darlington Stone Dubar is. And then you had Jonas Aidoo, and you had Tobe Awaka enter the transfer portal, and you're left looking at Kate Phillips, who you're really, really high on, and JP Estrella, who you're very, very high on. But you needed another big body. So one of 2 that I think Tennessee's going to get here in the next couple of days. Felix Okpara was in on an official visit earlier this week. It went very, very well. He's 6'11", 6'11" from Ohio State, a sophomore transfer center, and he announced his commitment to Tennessee on Thursday morning. It was later confirmed with the signing released by the university around lunchtime on Thursday. Rick Barnes said, "Hey, we are thrilled to have Felix join us here on Rocky Top. He comes from a great family, an exceptional teammate whose primary goal is to go and win." Barnes went on to say, "Felix is an elite shot blocker, high-level defender, and terrific rebounder." All those things, very important to Rick Barnes and very important to the late, great Pat Summitt, and that's what she built her programs on. Defender, rebounder, shot blocker. Barnes goes on to say he possesses the ability to score in the low post as well as play on the perimeter. A mobile athlete with excellent length who creates space offensively. Felix is a constant threat to get to the rim for a lob. We will do everything we can to help further his development in all aspects of his game. So what about Okpara that is kind of jumping off the stat sheet? Well, outside of the blocks, to be completely honest with you, nothing is going to jump off the stat sheet, if you will. He was the 4th official visitor for Tennessee that they hosted out of the NCAA transfer portal. He averaged 6.6 points, 6.4 rebounds, and 2.4 shot blocks this season while averaging 5.3 points and 5 rebounds the last 2 years combined. Started 35 games this past year, averaging a little over 23 minutes, at 23 minutes and a half. Started 11 times in 34 games as a freshman, so seen a lot of time his first 2 years here in college basketball at this level, averaging 15.5 minutes as a freshman. He shot 58% from the field in 70 games with the Buckeyes, so you'll take that shooting percentage for sure. So Okpara was recruited by Tennessee out of high school 2 years ago, 4-star prospect in the 2022 recruiting class. He does have family ties to the state, primarily the Chattanooga area, where he attended Hamilton Heights Christian Academy as a prep student. I like this get. I do. Toughness and a lot of and again, Jonas Aidoo was an all-SEC player, so I'm not trying to to just crap all over his performance because you would have liked Jonas to stay. Anybody saying, "Oh, I'm glad Jonas Aidoo's gone," well, I don't think that's very intelligent in my opinion. My opinion, you can have yours, but in my opinion, I don't think that's very intelligent. Were there downfalls to his game? Sure, there's downfalls to everybody's games. There's downfalls the way I do a show. Believe me, you guys let me know about it sometimes. But Jonas Aidoo, fact of the matter was, he was an All-SEC player, had first-team All-SEC potential to come back here as a senior. But at times, he wasn't as tough as you'd like him to be down low in the blocks, in my opinion. And I feel like we share that opinion. A lot of us do. What Felix Okpara is tough down there in the blocks. He is a force, 6'11" again, over 250 pounds, I believe. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be a rim protector. Where Jonas excelled with Felix was his offensive game and transitioning into his offense game a little bit more than what Felix Okpara is. But Felix Okpara does have the ability to stretch a little bit, and I think that he's going to want to continue to try to do that. Of course, like I said, Tennessee has already lost Freddie DeLeon, who, gosh, I was sick like 3 weeks ago and still not completely back to having all of my breath in my stomach or my throat whenever I'm doing a show here, with the occasional coughs. Freddie DeLeon transferred to Penn State. DJ Jefferson transferred to Longwood. Jonas Aidoo still in the portal. Tobe Awaka still in the portal. Of course, Dalton Connect, Josiah Jordan-James, and Santiago Vescovi are all leaving the program as fifth-year seniors. Tennessee's bringing in Bishop Boswell, the four-star point guard, who signed with Tennessee in November. So Tennessee has 4 spots open, and Tennessee's continuing to evaluate the likes of, let's see here. Continuing to evaluate the likes of Kay Tyson from Belmont, who I think is going to be a strong pull away from North Carolina, in my opinion. He's ranked, according to the On the 3 industry rankings for the NCAA transfer portal, at number 23. That's Kay Tyson. Darlington Stone Dubar, of course, who's already signed with Tennessee. He's ranked number 44. Igor Milicic, who I think Tennessee's in a really good spot with. I do. And wouldn't shock me if he's the one that's next to jump in here in the next few days. I think Tennessee's in a really good spot here, guys. And again, if he comes in, then again, it's all but signaling the end of Tobe Awaka, because you would have at the time Igor Milicic, who ranks number 72 in this list, and of course Felix Okpara, who just signed with Tennessee on Thursday. But Milicic ranks 72, Felix Okpara ranks number 76, and this is in the NCAA transfer portal rankings. For the On3 industry rankings over here on the On3 side. So, yeah, good stuff for Tennessee. Rebuilding that roster. It's your 1-year contract each and every year. It's a 1-year contract, and you can go on to the transfer portal. You can go on to the NFL, NBA draft, or you can stay put and get developed. And you're seeing guys like J.P. Estrella, Cade Phillips, Cam Carr, of course, Jemai Mashak and Zakai Ziegler and some other guys, Jordan Gainey, stay, get developed, see what they can do again next year. And you're adding, 2 really good and, a nice wing player in Darlington Stone Dubar and a nice 5, a true 5 in Felix Okpara, who will look to stretch out a little bit. But, of course, he is a rim protector. Good start. We'll see if Tennessee can close with Igor Milicic in the next few days. I think Tennessee's in a good spot there. And what about a guard? Of course, there was a name that was mentioned in Chaz Lanier on this show yesterday, and I think Tennessee would have great interest there. He's put the do not disturb tag, while entering the transfer portal, which a lot of times, in my opinion, that means teams have already tampered and he knows where he's going. But he's trying to get to the NBA draft right now, but he did enter his name in the portal to play somewhere else for his final year of eligibility if that's what he chooses to do. Went to Innsworth High School, did Chaz Lanier. I mean, it's not hard to kind of connect the dots, and Tennessee needs a guard. So we'll see if Tennessee's continuing to evaluate Chaz Lanier, if there's any contact there, and see if he's reached out to the university or some other names that would pop up. But good start for Tennessee in the NCAA transfer portal for basketball, and looking forward to seeing what this team's going to look like when it's all said and done. All right, 2 football players who left Tennessee's program in the NCAA transfer portal. ESPN's pretty high on them. Who are they? I'll tell you here in a moment as we continue on with Locked On Vols. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle with leveled up to peak performance, superchargers, roof rack, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money is back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to put your car into that MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep a ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, got a couple of guys in the NCAA transfer portal for football leaving Tennessee's program. I don't want to touch base on them here because ESPN's put out a couple of lists that I thought were pretty interesting. We going back to the December transfer portal window, that's when Tennessee lost, I want to say, 9 players, 6 or 7 of which were in the defensive backfield. And one of those non-defensive backs, but one of those elite players, really probably the biggest loss for sure for Tennessee, was Tyler Barron across the defensive front. And it has been a roller coaster for Tyler Barron, and I'm not close to the situation anymore. I'm not going to sit here and act like I am. When they leave Tennessee, I wish the best for them, but that's not my job anymore to know what's going on in their minds and where they're going to go. I know we're spending a little bit of time on it talking here on the show, but in terms of covering that recruitment, that's not my job anymore. So I don't know what the situation is. I don't. I will say from afar, it doesn't look very good. You commit to Ole Miss, you flip to Louisville, you go to Louisville, you go through spring, and now you're back in the transfer portal. It looks a little sus, in my opinion, for all you boomers out there, and including me in the conversation, because I don't normally use the term sus, suspect, odd, iffy, strange. It just looks a little different, right? I mean, is it a straight money grab? I don't want to say for sure that that's it, but it certainly looks that way. Are there some injuries behind the scenes that we don't know about? I don't know. But to go to Ole Miss, or to commit to Ole Miss early in the process, flipping to Louisville before getting on campus, going to Louisville, and then entering the transfer portal again, it just looks a little weird. Wesley Walker's in the same situation. Those guys are cousins, and they're best friends. Wesley Walker committed to Louisville. Tyler Barron flipped from Ole Miss to Louisville, and now both those guys are in the transfer portal. And Louisville's still having a really, really good transfer portal cycle, so I don't think they're going to miss him too much. But, Tyler Barron's a really good player. And Tyler Barron is ranked at number 11 over on ESPN's rankings of the college football transfers, best players available in the transfer portal. Tyler Barron's a little bit low, in my opinion, ranked at number 11, 6'5", 250. Is going to be a senior. His background, according to ESPN, the former ESPN 300 defensive end and Tennessee Volunteer, is back in the portal again. Barron signed with the Volunteers out of high school and was a highly productive player in 47 games under his belt with 18 starts at Tennessee. He broke out in 2023, playing in 12 games, 10 starts, 28 tackles, 10.5 TFLs, 6 sacks. He had a really good year. He has a great combination of length and strength to hold the edge versus the run, but is also quick and explosive enough to rip past blockers and disrupt the backfield. Tennessee deployed Barron all over the line and on the move with stunts to create mismatches on less athletic offensive linemen. As a pass rusher, he lacks consistent technique, but wins the quickness of the snap, length, adequate bend, and has a high motor. A lot of his production in Knoxville stemmed from a second effort, which is a good sign for players who has bounced around in the transfer portal. Barron would be higher up in our rankings if he had more eligibility. Okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense because he only has one more year of eligibility left. I will say, Tyler Barron had a great year this past year. Having him on one side, James Pierce on the other, it makes both of them better for sure. And I was talking, whenever I saw the initial topic that we did on yesterday's show for one of the segments from SEC this morning about if there was an SEC player draft, who would be your top 3? And our guy over at Locked On SEC, Chris Gordy, he responded with his top 3, and James Pierce wasn't in there, and I responded to Gordy. I'm like, James Pierce, ? Because clearly James Pierce is one of the best 3 players in the SEC, much less probably the nation. And he said, yeah, excellent choice. How good will he be with Barron not on the other side? And he's right. Dwight Freeney, Robert Mathis. I use that example all the time. Those 2 guys were so good for so long because the offensive linemen had to choose in terms of how they're going to call their blocking. Which side are they going to call their blocking to get a double on one of them and to let a one-on-one battle ensue on the other side? But I kind of responded with all due respect. I think it was Barron that benefited so much more than James Pierce benefited in that partnership, and I stand by that. Nonetheless, production's there, and Tyler Barron started out as a Leo in this defense. That was never really his spot, in my opinion, because he's always been a bigger guy, a more traditional defensive end, and he flourished on the other side as a 5 technique. So we'll see what Tyler Barron decides to do now. Transferring from Tennessee, technically transferring from Louisville. I do think that he can come back in the SEC if anybody wants him, but at this point in the game, if you're a contender, man, your roster is pretty much set. I mean, how desperate are you? The good teams aren't very desperate. Look at Tennessee. There's places that they could fill and enhance their roster potentially, but Tennessee's not desperate. That's why you've seen nobody come in via the transfer portal during this cycle, because Tennessee's not desperate. And there's other teams in the SEC, a couple other ones that are farther along than Tennessee, and they're certainly not desperate. So, I mean, you saw Georgia just sign Jaden Rashada. Jaden Rashada just committed to Georgia. I mean, he's not going to be the starting quarterback this year, so that's a little bit different. That's something to worry about for years to come if you're Tennessee, but that's a conversation for another day. Anyway, Tyler Barron ranked number 11 on this list. Elijah Herring is ranked number 7 on this list, and because they said that Barron would have been ranked higher if he had more years of eligibility, that's probably where Elijah Herring comes in here. And again, I like Elijah Herring a lot. I don't think Tennessee's going to be in a huge hole with him gone, but I would think that Tennessee would much rather have stayed here than enter the portal. But nonetheless, run stopper, you know all that. 6'3", 238. He's a junior. He's got 2 years of eligibility remaining. This is what they say about Elijah Herring, who they rank ESPN at number 7 in their transfer portal rankings. A high upside prospect, Herring's time with the Volunteers is a 3-star recruit from Murfreesboro with raw linebacker skill set. He packed muscle into his long frame and flashed as a freshman reserve and special teams contributor in Knoxville. Yes, he did. Last season, he took advantage of injuries and moved up the depth chart and the production board. He started 11 games, finishing with a team-high 79 tackles, 4 for loss, was a physical presence between the tackles. He also held his own, although it's not his strength. Owning coverage. He also held his own in coverage, although it's not his strength. For his career, Herring has 90 tackles, 5 TFLs, 2 sacks. Out of high school, he was a strong edge player that could fill the role in the right scheme. Keep an eye on movement with his brother Caleb Herring, who is settled in at edge for Tennessee. At this time, I think Caleb Herring is going to play for the Volunteers in the fall. But, of course, in this era, you never, ever, ever know. So Elijah Herring, ranked ahead of Tyler Barron. I would not have called that a couple of days ago for sure. But he does have a couple years of eligibility remaining. Again, I think ACC, Big Ten, the game is continuing to evolve into space. I recognize that is not just the Pac-12 or the SEC. But there are more, multi-tight end sets, couple different backs. I mean, the game is, closer to the line of scrimmage, more so in the Big Ten and in the ACC than it is in the SEC. And so I think that really kind of screams Elijah Herring, in my opinion. So he's ranked at number 7 in this list, which I found that kind of interesting. In case you're wondering, this is what the list is. Caden Proctor, who they still have him as a transfer. Has he not committed to Alabama like 4 times since he already left Alabama in January? I'm a bit confused, but Caden Proctor's there at number 1. He's going to Alabama. I don't know if he's publicly said that, but anyway, Caden Proctor's there at number 1. Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State's at number 2 that Vol fans really, really wanted, but I can tell you, they are not paying that price tag. Number 3 is Dayan Hayes, defensive lineman transferring from Pittsburgh, going to Colorado. Dominic Williams, defensive tackle from TCU, is at 4. Dylan Edwards, running back from Colorado, is number 5. Number 6 is Andrew Chambly, offensive tackle from Arkansas. Herring's there at 7. Jacoby Matthews, defensive back from Texas A&M, is 8. Samuel Brown, the wide receiver from Houston, is 9. Bryce Foster, the center from Texas A&M, is at number 10. And, of course, Tyler Barron is there at number 11. One more thing on this note before we move on to segment 3. College football transfer portal best fits for top players. Another article there over at ESPN. This is from last week, and I stumbled across it when I was doing show prep here for today's show. It's written by Tom Luganbill, of course, well-known ESPN analyst. And they're listing a couple of different names that I've already mentioned and kind of the best spots for these guys, such as Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State. They say his best fit would be to go to Miami or a sleeper school like Utah. They give the example of Dallin Hayden, who has, since this article has been published, has transferred to Colorado. They said that his best fit would be Georgia Tech. So again, some of these are not updated. But here's Elijah Herring transferring from Tennessee. Best fit for Elijah Herring, Tom Luganbill says Clemson. Here's the why. Herring is a tackling machine. He led Tennessee with 76 in 2023 and a pressure player that can be used as a blitzer. Yeah, that is a strong suit for him. He can blitz for sure. Clemson is thin and inexperienced at middle linebacker with Kobe McLeod and incoming freshman Sammy Brown in the mix. What up, Sammy Brown from recruiting? McLeod has 16 career tackles and is undersized. The outside linebackers Barrett Carter and Wade Woodaz are excellent, and Herring could shore up the inside. Clemson loves to get in some exotic pressure packages with its linebackers, which is right up Herring's alley. The Tigers would just have to start pursuing transfers to get them. Clemson is the only Power 5 school that hasn't signed a transfer this offseason. Oh, Dabo Swinney, man. I'll tell you what. There's a reason why Clemson isn't what it is anymore. Because Dabo Swinney, talk about a guy that can't evolve. A lot of people, myself included, have been like, because I'm not as close to the basketball program as I am football and baseball, obviously. So, like, when I see all this happening, and I see Tobe Awaka leave and Jonas Aidoo leave, I'm talking with, Rob and Grant, my colleagues over at VolQuest, and I'm like, man, this is gonna push Rick Barnes into retirement, man. I mean, it's gonna push him into retirement. I mean, this is enough for me. If I just got a $1.4 million bonus after going to the Elite Eight, I'm saying, hey, I'm gonna go be with the grandkids. I'm out. But one of them responded like, he loves the idea of reassembling a roster at a really fast pace. He thinks it's fun and he enjoys it, and he obviously enjoys coaching. So. Rick Barnes adapts to the current climate of college athletics. Dabo Swinney does not, because he is, well, quite frankly, he thinks he's better than everybody else, and, well, his team is certainly not better than anybody else anymore. That is for darn sure. Let's move on. Interesting topic coming up in segment number 3 with the NFL draft going on. Who is going to be the next star for Tennessee Volunteers in the NFL? I want to hear your thoughts. That's coming up next as we continue on here with a Friday Locked On Vols. Guys, I need you all to listen up. Huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboards every single day, keeping an eye on the scores, putting all my heart into it, and I'm super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You probably heard of it. It's been downloaded 150 million times. It's a great twist on mobile classic Monopoly. It's a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly. And you can play anywhere, anytime. You can explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Las Vegas to Camelot to the moon, all while raking in a fortune. Charge rent on your iconic properties just like in classic Monopoly. You can charge your friends rent or on their iconic properties. You can even you can go after their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. How much fun would it be to come in like a wrecking ball? You know what I'm saying? Shout out, Molly. But your favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's the Monopoly tycoon and who's gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now. It is free in the App Store and Google Play. Monopoly Go, it is free in the App Store and in Google Play. More coming up here next as we conclude a Friday Locked On Vols. All right, so fun topic coming up. NFL draft going on right now. Of course, the first round was last night. We got rounds 2 and 3 coming up tonight. We discussed some Tennessee players and their outlooks coming into the NFL draft. We're not going to do that here. That was on shows earlier this week. But when I sit here and I think about who is Tennessee's best ambassador in the NFL right now, not all time, I'm talking about right now. Will there ever be another Peyton Manning type player that comes from Tennessee and is just a star and a multi-MVP award winner in the NFL? I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. There's only one Peyton Manning. But there's been some good players. Alvin Kamara is still playing. He was the NFL Rookie of the Year when he went out back in 2016, 17, whenever that was. He's had some off-the-field issues and all that. I recognize that. But he's certainly still doing his thing in the NFL. Alontae Taylor, I think, is doing a really, really good job with the New Orleans Saints. Trey Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, just a good dude and always has been. Fought through so much adversity throughout his early childhood and young adulthood. And, that extended to the NFL draft this time a couple years ago when the first round talent wasn't taken until the 6th round, but to a good team, and he's won 2 Super Bowls since. So, Trey Smith gets the last laugh, right? Trey Smith, I think, is a great ambassador. Juwan Jennings, I think is a great ambassador. But, I was doing this. This topic is actually from a radio hit with 99.1 The Sports Animal that I did Wednesday afternoon. And the name was brought up with Juwan Jennings. And, of course, everybody loves Juwan from Tennessee. Third and Juwan. I think San Francisco fans really like him as well. But, I know he didn't officially hit free agency this past offseason. But, if he were to hit free agency, there wouldn't be a super long line of suitors. And I mean that is no disrespect to Juwan. His skill set is unique. He is a third down possession receiver. He is I'm going to get after your butt and block. I'm going to be a heart and soul type guy. You want him on your team. I want him on my team. But he's never going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He's never going to be a 500-yard receiver, okay? He's never going to catch more than 5 touchdowns in a season. He did catch a touchdown, and he threw a touchdown, or did he? Yeah, 2 touchdowns. If San Francisco would have won, he would have been Super Bowl MVP. What a story. What a story. But my point is, in terms of being, an incredible all-NFL Pro Bowler type guy, he's probably never going to be that. But showed his value, and, San Francisco was able to put that restricted tag on him and sign him for this year. Byron Young, boy, I think he could be in this conversation. What an excellent rookie season for the LA Rams. He was phenomenal, and he embodies, talk about another guy that went through so much adversity, man. Was working at Dollar General or whatever, taking a couple years off of football and going to JUCO, saw a sign that said, hey, football tryouts, and he went and did that, then transferred to the SEC. I called him when Pruitt was fired. He was on his way to Knoxville because Pruitt signed him, and I said, hey, are you still coming? And he's like, man, I fought through so much adversity. I'm not turning back now. And he was literally in a car driving to Knoxville, and it kind of sent chills. I was like, man, that is... Watch this guy. Watch this guy for sure. Put on a lot of weight and did a lot of great things at Tennessee, and, of course, had an excellent rookie year. So, fact of the matter is, I'm trying to find that next star in the NFL from Tennessee. So, I think Byron Young is one of those guys that comes at the top of my list. Darnell Wright would be up there, too, but, he's an offensive lineman, with all due respect. How much face time is he going to get in the NFL spotlight? Not a whole lot. Other guys worth considering, I guess, would be... I already mentioned Trey Smith. He's up there for sure, and he's a little bit different because he's vocal and he's more, at this stage in his career, more involved in extracurriculars and everything. Darrell Taylor, Derek Barnett, Josh Palmer, Hendon Hooker. Until Hendon was mentioned, but until Hendon plays, he's not going to be the face of the NFL Vols. You know what I'm saying? Jalen Hyatt, until there's more production there. Same with Cedric Tillman, Cade Mays. Joshua Dobbs, who's been a great ambassador for Tennessee, don't get me wrong. He's kind of been a journeyman, but he's still hanging on, still doing some things. He was taking the NFL by storm at points of time last year, which was fun to watch. But again, not necessarily what I'm looking for. Malante Taylor, I mentioned, and Jalen Reeves-Maben. Jalen Reeves-Maben, I believe, is the president of the NFLPA, so he would be a really, really good guy to be in this conversation. So I think of those names that I just mentioned, right, I think Trey kind of sticks out. I think Byron Young sticks out, and I think Jalen Reeves-Maben sticks out, okay? Look at the guys that are going to be drafted this weekend at some point. Jalen Wright, Joe Milton, maybe Kamal Haddon, maybe McCowan Castles. We'll see. I don't know if I'm ready to put any of those guys in this conversation, but I'll tell you some guys who are currently on Tennessee's roster who have still got work to do, right? Still have work to do, but who could be the face of the NFL Vols one day. I think it comes down to 2 guys, and I'm sure you guys can guess them right now. It's how you build your roster, how Josh Heupel has recruited his roster here at Tennessee, how you build your roster in NFL free agency. You got to have a quarterback, and you got to have a guy that gets after the quarterback. Those are the essentials of every recruiting class. And Tennessee has 2 good ones on its current roster right now, and Nico Iamaleava and James Pierce. I think both those guys could be a great face of the Tennessee football program when they go on to the NFL, because both of those guys will. James Pierce will be a very high draft pick this time next year when we're talking about this on the show. Very high draft pick. Top 10 draft pick most likely. We'll see. Fingers crossed, and we'll see if he continues to progress as a junior. Nico, if all goes according to plan and he is who we think he is, in 2 years, he will be a very high draft pick. So I think those 2 guys on the current roster are where we start. Some other guys that I thought are worth mentioning that are on the current roster, Lance Hurd. Of course, he hadn't played a down for Tennessee yet, but that's coming. Offensive tackle as he continues to progress. I think he'll be a pretty high draft pick. Mike Matthews one day, again, a true freshman that has never taken a snap yet for Tennessee, but I just think he's going to be a dude. That's Mike Matthews. And then here's an interesting one. And again, it kind of goes back to what we've talked about a million times here on the show. Dante Thornton. He was a bust last year. Started to turn it around a little bit, then got hurt. Was playing his best football when they finally bumped him outside. Had a great spring. And I think Dante Thornton's going to go off this fall. I do. He's got the skill. He's long. He's explosive. He's athletic. Everything you want in an outside receiver. And he's gotten a little bit bigger as well. Dante Thornton, I think, can go off this year, go to the NFL, and I think can have a really, really nice career. And that was said about him when he was coming to Tennessee, just the intangibles. And seeing it up close and personal for a little over a year now, I'll see what they're talking about. Now, the production needs to follow, for sure. And it was coming towards the end of the year last year. That adjustment he made on the ball, bracketing the cornerback to score that touchdown at Missouri, the only touchdown for Tennessee, what a beautiful play. What a beautiful play. Anybody else on the current roster right now that could be the face of the NFL for Tennessee, the face of the NFL Vols? Kind of working through position by position. I think Jamal McCoy potentially could be a guy. Linebackers, we'll see what Arian Carter and Jeremiah Thielander do over the next couple of years. Defensive line, we mentioned James Pierce. Big O, I think, could go and get drafted, but he's just going to be a dude. Offensive line, I mentioned Lance Hurd. John Campbell's a seventh-year college player. He's not going to be drafted high. Cooper Mays would be fun. What's his draft prospect look like? Quarterback, Nico. Running back, right now, I'm not going to go there. And, of course, tight end, not going to go there. And wide receiver, well, we already talked about it. So I think on the current roster, James Pierce and Nico Iamaleava are two pretty daggone good candidates to be the next wave of the NFL Vols. But I think right now, man, Trey Smith's doing a good job. Byron Young's doing a good job. Jalen Reeves-Maybin's doing a good job. And so on and so forth. Josh Dobbs. And always a lot to choose from because Tennessee has great development over its years, and Josh Heupel's regime is no different. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of Locked On Vols. Can't thank you enough for joining us here on today's show. Thank you so much. Pound that like button. Subscribe if you're watching on YouTube if you haven't already. Let's continue to grow the show. Get it in front of more and more Tennessee fans. That helps the show grow. That helps me. So if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. If you're listening and you haven't downloaded this episode, download it. If you haven't subscribed to Locked On Vols on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever, please subscribe. Set up that notification to where I'll let you know whenever I'm going live. And, of course, whenever you open your app, if you're subscribed, it should automatically download. So that is how we help grow the show and get in front of more and more Tennessee fans. Can't thank you enough, guys. Let's see what the NFL Draft has in store for us this weekend. We'll see how Tennessee finishes off the series against Missouri. That and a whole lot more to discuss. Plus, I really do think in a matter of days, Tennessee will have somebody else from the transfer portal for basketball. We'll talk about it all on a Monday Locked On Vols. Until then, stay safe. Enjoy the weekend. This is Locked On Vols.